A court case with a staggering price tag is moving toward the Supreme Court, and its outcome could force Washington to hand hundreds of billions of dollars back to American companies. At the center of the fight is a basic question. How much power does a president have to tax the goods we buy from the rest of the world? The story starts with the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, passed by Congress in 1977. In recent years, the Trump administration relied on that law to slap sweeping tariffs on imports from most of the world, including key partners such as China, Canada, and Mexico. It justified the move by declaring national emergencies tied to trade deficits and fentanyl trafficking. A coalition of small businesses and several states sued, arguing that the president overstepped. Their case rests on a simple constitutional principle. Congress, not the White House, controls taxation. While IEPA lets a president regulate commerce during an emergency, the plaintiffs say it doesn't grant a blank check to impose new taxes. On August 29, 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit agreed. In a 7-4 decision, the court ruled that President Trump exceeded his authority. It leaned on the major questions doctrine, which says the executive branch needs clear congressional approval before taking actions with vast economic or political impact. The judges noted that the dollars at stake dwarf the size of other programs the Supreme Court has reviewed under this doctrine. The administration fiercely disagrees. President Trump called the ruling highly partisan and has vowed to appeal, asking the Supreme Court to fast-track the case. For now, the tariffs stay in place. The appeals court gave the government until October 14, 2025, to file its petition, pausing its own decision in the meantime. The financial stakes are enormous. If the Supreme Court upholds the lower court, every dollar collected under these specific tariffs would have to be repaid, with interest. Estimates start above $200 billion, and once interest is added, could approach $500 billion. Who has been footing the bill so far? U.S. companies that import goods pay the tariffs, and many pass at least part of the cost to consumers through higher prices on electronics, cars, building materials, and more. By July of this fiscal year, tariff revenues had already reached $159 billion, with roughly $30 billion coming in each month. Refunding that money would be a logistical nightmare. Businesses would have to file claims with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and the government would have to calculate and disperse interest on each payment. The Justice Department has warned that cutting checks on this scale could have catastrophic consequences for the broader economy. The Treasury might need to borrow unexpectedly large sums, adding to the national debt and rattling financial markets. Beyond the financial shock, the case is a major test of presidential power. A final ruling against the administration would reaffirm that Congress holds the primary authority to levy taxes and tariffs, limiting how future presidents can act under emergency powers. The uncertainty is already complicating life for American businesses. Companies that rely on global supply chains can't plan long-term when the cost of imported parts could swing dramatically, depending on what 9 justices decide. The decision will also shape U.S. trade policy. If the broad use of IEPA is struck down, future administrations will have fewer unilateral tools to impose tariffs, shifting more responsibility back to Congress. For most people, a refund check is unlikely. But if the tariffs disappear for good, some imported goods could get cheaper. On the flip side, a sudden multi-billion-dollar payout by the Treasury could ripple through the economy in ways that affect everyone.
As the October 14th deadline approaches, all eyes are on the Supreme Court. Its eventual ruling won't just determine the fate of one set of tariffs. It will help define the balance of power in Washington and the future of America's economic ties with the rest of the world.
A piece of California's history is turning to ash. In the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, a fast-moving wildfire has engulfed the historic gold mining town of Chinese Camp, destroying homes and erasing landmarks that have stood for over 170 years. We'll explain how a storm of lightning strikes unleashed this devastation and what's being lost in the flames. This disaster began not with a single spark, but with thousands. On Tuesday, September 2, 2025, a massive lightning storm swept across central California. This lightning siege ignited numerous fires in the dry, drought-stressed landscape. Firefighting authorities have grouped at least 9 of these fires into what they are calling the TCU September Lightning Complex, a series of blazes burning across 3 counties, Tuolumne, Calaveras, and Stanislaus. The fire at the heart of this story, the one that struck Chinese Camp, is officially named the 6-5 fire. Fueled by strong winds and the dry vegetation left from a hot summer, it spread with terrifying speed. As of Wednesday morning, September 3rd, the 6-5 fire alone has burned over 6,400 acres. The entire lightning complex has scorched more than 12,000 acres, and most critically, there is 0% containment, meaning the threat is far from over. To understand what's at risk, we have to look back in time. Chinese Camp is not just a name on a map, it's a California historical landmark. It was founded around 1850 during the gold rush. Its first residents were Chinese miners who had been forced out of a nearby settlement. At its peak, Chinese Camp was a bustling hub with a population of up to 5,000 people. It was a headquarters for stagecoach lines and several powerful Chinese mining companies. It was also the site of a significant event in 1856, the First Tong War in California, a battle fought between 2 rival societies. Before this fire, the town was a quiet community, a collection of homes and a few precious buildings that survived from that era. These included the St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church, built in 1855, and a stone and brick post office which had been operating since 1854. Now that history is under direct assault. The 6-5 fire swept through the small community with devastating force. While official damage assessments are still underway, reports and videos from the scene paint a grim picture. At least 5 homes have been confirmed destroyed, with images showing properties along Red Hill Road and Main Street reduced to rubble. Tragically, multiple reports have now confirmed that the historic post office, a building that served the community for over 170 years, has been completely destroyed by the flames. The fate of other historic structures, like the St. Francis Xavier Church, remains uncertain. The well-known Chinese Camp store and tavern was seen still standing as the fire passed, but the full extent of any damage is unknown. The town's infrastructure has also been hit, with power lines down throughout the area. For the residents of this small, tight-knit community, the experience has been harrowing. The entire town of Chinese Camp was placed under a mandatory evacuation order, forcing everyone to flee. One resident, Selena Moyle, described the scene of destruction, saying, "It's such a quiet little place. There's really nothing left. Nothing at all." The uncertainty is agonizing for those who escaped. Richard Beal, the owner of the Chinese Camp store, was away when the fire erupted. His wife and son were ordered to evacuate the store, and like many others, he's left waiting for news, unsure of what he will find when he is allowed to return. The loss is felt not just by residents, but by those who have studied the town's past. Stephen Provost, an author who has written about Chinese Camp's history, put it this way: "When a historic building burns, it's a piece of history we lose. When a whole town like that goes, it's just devastating." Amidst the loss of property and history, there is one piece of good news. As of the latest reports, no injuries or fatalities have been reported. Firefighters are on the ground battling to save what's left. CAL FIRE is leading the response, using ground crews, bulldozers, and aircraft to fight the blaze. They were seen working to protect structures that were still standing and putting out hotspots within the town. The initial strong winds that drove the fire have reportedly calmed, but the weather remains a concern. The forecast calls for warm conditions with the possibility of more thunderstorms, which could bring unpredictable, gusty winds that could easily worsen the fire's behavior. The fire has also caused major disruptions, closing a section of Highway 120, a key route for travelers heading to Yosemite National Park. The state has recognized the severity of the situation. Governor Gavin Newsom's office announced that California has secured a fire management assistance grant from the federal government. This grant will help cover the costs of the firefighting effort. Governor Newsom stated, "We are securing all available resources to fight this growing lightning complex fire." The story of Chinese Camp is a stark reminder of how quickly a natural disaster can erase a community's present and a state's past. A storm of lightning has led to a firestorm of destruction. For the residents who have lost their homes and for a state that has lost a piece of its history, the focus now is on containing the immediate threat and then eventually facing the difficult question of what can be rebuilt from the ashes.
Imagine standing face to face with America's founding fathers, eager to ask about the nation's birth, its ideals, and its struggles. Now imagine that the words they speak were written 2 centuries later. That's the puzzle posed by a new high-tech exhibit in Washington, D.C., and it's sparking a lively debate over where history ends and fiction begins. Inside the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, just steps from the West Wing, the Founders Museum has opened as part of the lead-up to America's 250th anniversary in 2026. The project is a partnership between the Trump administration and the conservative nonprofit PragerU, operating under the umbrella of the White House Task Force 250. On the walls hang 82 paintings of declaration signers and pivotal revolutionary moments. The real draw, though, lives on visitors' phones. Scan a QR code beside a portrait, and an artificial intelligence avatar springs to life, speaking in more than 40 short videos. Thomas Jefferson, Betsy Ross, John Adams all appeared to deliver first-person reflections meant to champion the spirit of patriotism, as the White House puts it. PragerU's CEO, Marissa Streit, says the collaboration is designed to make history engaging, accurate, fair, and accessible. And the administration is urging governors and ambassadors to install replicas of the exhibit in schools and embassies. Many historians aren't convinced. Their chief worry, the exhibit blurs fact and modern politics. The example most often cited features an AI John Adams. He opens with an authentic line, "Facts are stubborn things," then adds, "Facts do not care about your feelings." That second sentence is pure 21st century rhetoric, popularized by conservative commentator Ben Shapiro, not by the second president of the United States. To critics, that mashup illustrates a deeper problem. The American Historical Association argues the museum offers a narrow, exclusionary narrative that glosses over conflict and omits marginalized voices. Brown University historian Karen Wolf notes that a video on revolutionary writer Mercy Otis Warren reduces her complex critiques of the founders to a simplistic celebration. Skepticism also stems from PragerU's track record. In a widely criticized children's video, an animated Christopher Columbus tells viewers that being taken as a slave is better than being killed. Historians condemned the segment as dangerous revisionism. PragerU defended it, claiming it would be inaccurate for Columbus to judge slavery by modern standards. Context matters too.
The Founders Museum arrives amid a broader push by the Trump administration for what it calls a more celebratory take on U.S. history. The president has blasted institutions like the Smithsonian for highlighting slavery, labeling them out of control. In March 2025, an executive order titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History directed federal museums to remove divisive or partisan narratives and promote American exceptionalism. A subsequent review of Smithsonian exhibits has drawn fierce criticism from professional historians who see it as political interference. Supporters of the museum counter that every generation interprets the past through its own lens, and that AI offers an engaging way to bring primary sources to life. Detractors respond that mingling authentic quotes with modern talking points risks turning historical figures into ventriloquists for today's ideologies. So, is the Founders Museum a breakthrough in storytelling or a high-tech echo chamber? As the United States marches towards its 250th birthday, the struggle over how and by whom the nation's story gets told is only heating up. In the meantime, visitors can still walk the halls, aim a phone at a painting, and hear John Adams speak. The question is, whose words are they really hearing?